Hey, Corona TV viewers, this is Peter Keys from Leonard Skinner. I want to wish you all a happy birthday.
First of all, let's just do the elbow bump because we can't do the handshake right now.
Hello, everybody on Corona TV. This is Macy Gray.
You're smiling, and I saw your beautiful daughter earlier, who I said could come on the show anytime. Welcome, Shiv Singh.
Thanks for having me, Joseph. Great to be with you.
Welcome, everybody. Happy Friday. Welcome back to Corona TV. It is another community extravaganza, a little bit more manageable. But when Scott Monty is involved, you know that there is just going to be, let's call it ordered chaos. There will be impressions. There will be impersonations. There will be, trapeze artists. There's going to be a lot of stuff. And he's going to be joined by, well, you'll see who he's going to be joined by. We have one guest that's AWOL. Maybe she will materialize and show up, and maybe she won't. And if you know her, and I'll introduce her spirit soon enough, contact her, call her, tell her to log on. You know, we're the best of the old with the best of the new on Corona TV, right? The best of the old, the ability to put on a professional show with the best of the new in this day and age, in the social media enabled world, in the streaming renaissance, if you will. There's always the ability to create best practices and marry them with flexibility, with the ability to pivot, with the ability to have a little bit of fun as well. Mr. David Gerbino, he says, I agree, this should be interesting. And Chris Brogan is saying, hey, log on. So somebody track down Carla Johnson. Tell her we need her. We need her. Otherwise, Chris Brogan's going to end up logging on and telling us he is Carla Johnson, and we might just believe him. Bob Farnham is here. He loves the idea of 5 guests. Do you like the idea of 4 guests? Because it's about to be. And Chip Griffin says, I bow to Scott Monty. See what I say? Oh, I bow to Scott Monty. See what I did there? Kind of, Chip, kind of. I think I kind of do see. And of course, wouldn't be Corona TV without my mom watching. Hello, Mom. Nice to see you on the show. Well, today is National App Day. Hold on, or maybe it's Nationala Pip Day. I'm just trying to make sure I'm reading it. National App Day. So I wonder, what is your favorite app? What is the app that you can't live without? What is the app that everyone should know about? I'm going to ask each one of my guests when they come onto the show what their favorite app is. So guys, start thinking about it right now. That is your icebreaker question. Tom Morris, of course, is here, and he's cheering us all on. We appreciate it. And Chris Brogan says, Mama Jaffe. You know, I love, by the way, Chris and I and Marcus, we're all fellow streamies. And I just love the fact that as we're doing our shows, we have, our parents, we have our siblings. It's a beautiful thing. It's a really, really beautiful thing to be able to share this with our family, especially while our family is in, isolation and while we can't see them. So it is one of those silver linings. So today, Mr. Christopher S. Penn, Mr. Scott Monty, Mr. Marcus Whitney, Mr. Jan Zlotnick, and where is she? Ms. Carla Johnson. Carla, we need you. We miss you. We hope you're okay, first and foremost. These are crazy times. Let me give you a little sneak preview for next week's guest, Nate Woodbury, part 2, as opposed to 2. He's a an incredible YouTube producer. And, talk about Murphy's Law. He had connectivity issues, streaming issues. And so we're going to try again. Kerry Gorgone is going to be on Tuesday. She is the co-host of the Backpack Show, and I'm so thrilled for her to come on. George Tenenbaum, copywriter, one of the great copywriters in the ad game, out in his own right now. We're going to hear, I'm sure we're going to be talking about what's eating Gilbert Grape, what's eating the ad agency business. And then Farah Bostic, I've had the pleasure of being on several Beancast podcasts with her. She's just an incredible, incredible mind, wonderful strategic thinker. And then finally, On Friday, Kuda Beezer, favorites of the show, Ian Pritchard, Faith James, David Meerman Scott, and just waiting to confirm him, Mark Schaefer. David Meerman Scott and Mark Schaefer in the same place at the same time. Will the world ever be the same again? Nobody knows the answer to that question. So let's see what else. We've got, exactly, Chris Brogan says, like an old radio show. Go ahead, Carla. Carla, I don't know where she is. I want her to go ahead. But we'll see what's happening. Well, everyone's having a jolly old time in the comments. I'm going to leave you guys to talk amongst yourselves, and we will keep moving on with birthday wishes. Mr. Frank Bacon, what a name. Bar Degani, Helga Keitel, any relation to Harvey? We'll never know. And the godfather of the marketing business, Mr. Michael Casson. Kiss the ring, indeed. And then finally on LinkedIn, we've got Andrew Miller, Charles Robinson, Joe Reed, Brian Gissner. Happy birthday, one and all. But now it's time. You know what I just realized? A little bit of a schoolboy error. Here I am wishing people, wishing guests, and not even showing them on the screen. So let's go back and show them on the screen. Bacon, Degani, Keitel, you got him. Miller, Patel, Reed. Happy birthday. All right, let's get on with the show. My first guest. In fact, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to bring them on in chronological order based on when they came onto this show. So first, number 10, he was my 10th guest ever, Mr. Scott Monty. Welcome back.
Look at you, Joseph. I am so excited to be here. I've been working with my hair and makeup people all week, and as you can see, I've fired them. So
yeah,
it's nice to be here.
And I'm glad you said it, and I didn't have to say it. The old line is, did you pay money for that haircut?
Who knows? In the days of, I learned a couple of weeks ago that George Clooney admitted that he uses a Flowbee, and not just in the pandemic. He's been using the Flowbee for years. And I thought, if it works on George Clooney, it's not going to work on me.
It's like Danny DeVito and Arnold Schwarzenegger staring in a mirror. Twins.
There you go. We are twins.
All right, Mr. Scott Monty, it is National App Day. What is your favorite app?
I thought it was Nation APP Day.
It is Nation AP. What is your favorite APP?
My favorite app is Pocket Casts. It is I use an iPhone, and I think the Apple Podcast app that comes with the phone is horrible. Has been for a long time. And I've been using Pocket Casts, and it has a premium subscription, but it also allows you to do stuff for free, sort your podcasts, queue stuff up, resort the order in which the tiles appear. It's a really nice user experience, and it's my go-to podcast listening app.
All right. Next on the show, she was number 15, guest number 15. And this is her last appearance on Corona TV as well. She's still AWOL, but Carla Johnson, if anybody knows Carla and can find her, make sure she's okay and bring her back onto the show. Come back, Carla. We miss you. Let's move on to number 64, Mr. Marcus Whitney, my fellow Yid, my fellow Spurs fan.
Yes.
He is an entrepreneur. He is an investor. He is an author. He is a fellow streamie. Welcome back to the show, Marcus.
I'm so glad you asked me to come back, Joe. It's a great way to wrap up this year. It lets me end it on a high note. I've been sort of buried for the last 2 or 3 months, not doing my regular streamy thing. So I've kind of missed it. I'm not even in my normal studio. I've been so underground. I'm like in my bedroom. So apologies for the bad lighting, but hopefully the sound is good enough.
Now, have you been enjoying, how's your neck, by the way? Because does it hurt when you have to look so far down the table, when you're on top and you've got to look so far down to see where Arsenal is?
I can't even see him. I can't even see him. I can't get him on a screenshot anymore, Joe. They're like below 15. You can't fit below 15.
There is a beautiful thing going around right now. I'll send it to you afterwards. It says the new iPhone, I guess it would be iPhone 13. It's ultra long. It's like this long, so it allows you to look at the entire table without scrolling. It's the Arsenal edition. So right. I realize I've just alienated all the Arsenal fans, all two of them. I apologize. Marcus, what is your favorite app?
So my favorite app is related to my, can you see it? My Ring, Aura. So it's the sleep tracking, and then also tracks a couple of other things app. And there are a couple of these things out there, but I like this one because I used to do the Apple Watch, but then just was uncomfortable wearing that big heavy watch to bed all the time, and the charging thing was sort of nasty. And this Ring, it can hold a charge for like 5 days. And all it really does is track your heart rate and the time that you sleep. And it is really the one thing I check in the morning, and I have a fairly good sense of like how my day is going to go. If it tells me, hey man, you nailed it, no interruptions last night, I'm like, all right, I'm good to go. But I don't have to wonder, why am I not feeling sort of, up to snuff on any particular day? It also is where I track my meditation. So it's a pretty important app for me.
And you don't have
to track you on that?
Listen, my wife makes fun of my quantified self habits consistently. So she has no desire to track me any more than I track myself. I'll tell you that much. Especially not in a year where we've seen.
My follow-up question was, does it track flatulence? You don't have to answer that. You do not have to answer that. But it is. If I said it was the perfect segue, that would be a complete inaccurate statement. But my next guess is Mr. Christopher S. Penn. Number 76, quite possibly one of the smartest guys I've ever met, maybe the smartest, with no slight to Scott or Marcus. Welcome back to the show, Mr. Christopher S. Penn.
Thanks for having me.
So, Chris, let's ask that question to you. I'm intrigued. What is your favorite app?
These days, it's an app called Joplin. Joplin is a competitor to Evernote, but it is open source, and it operates entirely in a language called Markdown, which allows you to write what effectively are just plain text files that syncs across the cloud and stuff like that, and then you can output them to PDFs, to HTML, to Kindle format. And I use it for pretty much everything these days: blog posts, newsletters, the works. Because the thing about the Markdown format is, at the end of the day, it's just a plain text file. So 20 years later, when you go to dig up these files, guess what? You'll still be able to read them, as opposed to things that you wrote in Microsoft Word 97. Your computer's like, I'm not even going to open that. So again, it's free and it's open source. I love it, and it's actively being developed. So I'm excited to see where it goes.
All right, and then finally, guest number 158, Mr. Jan Zlotnick. But Jan, that's probably not the most, you may have been guest 158, but you've been with me on this journey as part of our incredible Zoom after show. We've been together now for well over 6 months. So it doesn't, I'm still getting used to thinking of you as a guest or a previous guest because you've been so much part of this family, this community, the furniture that makes up Corona TV. So welcome back.
Thank you. I'm proud to be 158. And yeah, whenever I think of the show, I think of one of your first shows where you were actually in the car on your way to get what might have been one of the first COVID tests that there had to be. It was probably in March, maybe February, I don't know. So I'm happy to be here, and I'm especially happy to be here with these most interesting people in the world. And by the way, I did hear from Carla. I heard that she does Unplug on Fridays. So she called me. She is at the beach. It is a nice day. Yeah, she says she's going to try to get on, but she's a little comfortable now.
And when I say what's your favorite app, you're going to give me a little analog idea, seashells or?
Yeah, it'd be nice if there was an app that let you just listen to the ocean, but I prefer this. So I'll go with this. You said which app might be indispensable. You can't live without. That might be different than my favorite app, but I can't live without a navigational app. And that's because even when I come up out of the subway, if I ever do that again, I need to figure out if I'm going west or east in Manhattan. And just generally speaking, I find myself just meandering thought-wise. So I need that app. But the other app that I just purely enjoy, I'd have to say, is the New York Times Daily Show app. It's, to me, not just a great quick on the topic of the day, but it reminds me of what you can get done at a high quality if you really put your mind to it. Every morning, that sucker is on, and it's 5 stars.
So there are so many texts I get from you, which is the daily, the daily, the daily, the daily. I'm still yet to actually watch or read or listen to one because I'm always prepping for the show. But I appreciate the fact that you're always thinking of me when you are inspired by it. Now, just a few quick comments, and then we're going to get right into Scott's segment. Chip says there are probably more Arsenal fans watching than Spurs trophies this millennium. Ouch. 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 And I have good news. Previous guest Angus Nelson has let us know that aura flatulence is now trending on Twitter. So as Scott takes a drink of water and almost spat it out. So just watch out. And Leslie Laredo loves the idea of Jan, the furniture of Corona TV. All right. Well, Scott, you know the rules, which I'm sure you're going to break. You've hijacked the show many times by suddenly screen sharing when I didn't even know a guest could just do that. But Scott, you are up first, and your 5 minutes, or now with our caller here, I'll give you 5 minutes and 12 seconds. Starts now.
Well, as you said, Joe, I am going to break the rules. I'm going to do that in honor of our guests, because what I've done is I've brought a bow tie on for each one of our guests. It's been picked out and curated specifically for each one of our guests. I'm going to tie it. I'm going to tie it live.
What does Scott Monty know about bow ties?
No, nothing really. I'm going to tie each bow tie live here on the show as I get it around my microphone, my headphone cord. This in particular is for Marcus Whitney. I'm going to go in order here. Marcus, of course, as you know, is the author of Create and Orchestrate, a fantastic book about using a path to kind of clear your head and make new things and do it in a way that makes sense. And I'm really having a tough time here since I can't see. The blinded bow tie tying is not always easy. So this tie that I've picked out for Marcus, I got from our friends at Bow Ties Limited of Vermont, where I would say probably a good 70% of my bow tie collection is from. And I'm going to have to get close to the camera here so you can see it. Oh my gosh, that's horrible. This tie is actually made up of musical instruments. If you can pick that up, Joseph, I'll go down there. The musical scale, violins, French horns, guitars, etc. So that is in honor of Marcus and orchestrating.
Well done.
So,
thank you, Scott. I'm absolutely honored.
And
absolutely.
At 12 seconds a tie, you're still in with a shot.
I can do a little better. This one is in honor of Christopher S. Penn, a man who takes precaution wherever he goes, whether it's in marketing or in life. As you can see there, if I had him on my team, he would be the armorer. He would be the guy I would select to come up with all the crazy secret weapons, the things that you can really undermine your opponents with and effectively defend yourself. Because we all know that when it comes to preparing, whether you're preparing in marketing or life, it's all the preparation that makes sense. And this one, if you can make it out, and I'm going to actually share my screen to do this one. This is
you're doing it again.
I
love it.
Here I am. This is heralds and shields. I actually did this on St. Crispin's Day, which was day 55 of a bow tie a day. So that is in honor of Mr. Christopher S.
Hold on, I've got to add you to the stream. You're what happened to your share? Did you share?
I'll do it again. Here we go. Patience and fortitude.
That ironically might have been the one that I actually showed earlier. So there's Chris. There it is. That's the one?
That's the one. The heraldic tie.
All right, awesome. So that's all you got today, right? You've with 3 minutes 20 seconds on the clock.
All right, we're
nobody
still
else.
going. You know, Jan has a book that I actually recommended in my newsletter last week. The book is 23 Things I Wish I Could Ask My Mom and Dad. And to me, it was a powerful reminder about appreciating the things that are right in front of us, the things that, you know, we should be paying attention to every day and putting our time into. And those are the relationships that we build. And I thought it was a very reflective book, and I was honored to write a review and recommendation for it. And in honor of that, I am wearing my very first bow tie, which was gifted to me by my mom and dad when I was 16 years old. It's a little worse for the wear after all these years. I'm not going to say exactly how many, but this is in honor of mom and dad. And hi, Joseph's mom. So that is tie number 3.
Well, that's wonderful, and you don't have to do Carla's.
I'm going to do it anyway because she's not here, and I'm going to make her feel guilty. Her book is Rethink Innovation. Nice bright orange color. So I've got a nice bright orange tie. I think I wore this the day after Trump was defeated in the election because it is an angry orange. And we can say I could have worn it every day since then, really, because he's been an angry orange every day since then. So there we go with Carla's tie. And finally, Joseph, because I couldn't forget about you, the host of the show, the guy who makes all this stuff possible, the guy who talked with Ted Wright earlier this week about the power of word of mouth. When I first came to join Crayon and joined forces with Joe, and that's a mistake he regrets ever since, he was writing Join the Conversation. And this tie, which is a very simple green tie with polka dots, I always get people talking about. Every time I wear this tie, people want to comment on it. So it helps people join the conversation with me. And that's the tie I'm settling on for the rest of the show, Joe.
Oh, thank you. I am truly honored. And you did it you did it pretty much in 5 minutes. That was amazing. I think.
Thank you. But that's not what I want people to talk about. Here's the thing. Here's my actual topic. The thing that I want to get you guys.
Oh, I'm so sorry we're out of time.
Yeah.
But please tune in next week.
Hi, I'm going to be Carla now, and this is my topic. So this week in my newsletter, Timeless and Timely, I wrote about nostalgia. And it's particularly important to reflect on this just about now because the holidays are upon us. And Joe and Jan, happy Hanukkah. We, of course, are in the midst of, I don't know what day it is of Christmas music that we're enduring. Christmas, of course, is on the 25th. And happy Festivus to Christopher S. Penn on the 23rd. I'm imagining he supports something that requires an aluminum pole. But it's the time for holiday seasons. And what does a holiday bring us in terms of memories when we think back? But we think of traditions that we have, maybe with the family, visions of sugar plums dancing in our heads and making snow angels out in the yard and, laughter around drinks in the fireplace. That's nostalgia. When it comes time to actually celebrate the holidays, those sugar plums may be stale fruitcakes that you get in the mail. Those snow angels may be the ice you have to scrape off of your windshield as you trudge out to a holiday party or to someone's home to visit. That laughter and drinking around the fireplace may turn into a little boozy argument with your family. So in reality, when nostalgia meets actuality, there's a conflict here. And we've seen plenty of brands using nostalgia, using visions of our childhood to harken back to a simpler, more carefree time, perhaps, and bringing back products that we remember from our childhood, even repackaging them in ways we might recognize. So this duality of nostalgia, and let's not kid ourselves. Make America Great Again has been a not unsubtle pitch to reclaim basically life of the 1950s. And look, I just recently watched Back to the Future, and I'm sure it's a movie we've all seen. The 50s, while they were, confectionery in our nation, in our notions, that it was a purer, more simple time. That's not really the fact, particularly with women who were expected to be in the home, who perhaps were assaulted and nobody spoke about it, who had to endure pay at a percentage of what men get, still do, as a matter of fact. Like Marty's mother, Lorraine. We had abhorrent racism in the past. We had things that were happening that, there weren't even laws on the books. The Civil Rights Act didn't come around until 1965. And yet we're still struggling with some of these very same basic things today. So let's not kid ourselves. Nostalgia isn't always cheery and optimistic. There's a dark side to it that's hidden. And I wanted to kind of discuss with you guys, what do you think the pros and cons of using nostalgia in our storytelling, in our traditions are, and where do you think that leaves us?
Let the past die. Kill it if you must. It's the only way to move forward.
Yeah, I think that's well said, Chris. And what an amazing topic, because we both crave the comfortable, and that is the known, and that is the emotional core of who we are, which is the past. But we deny the core of who we are and what this world's about if we're not, as the cliche is so true, about being in the present. And so we're poisoned by the past as much as we are emboldened and cherish it. I struggle with that. I do not want to banish it, but I want to filter it for sure. So really interesting. And it ties into some things I've been looking into about dementia, and dementia patients actually having something to teach us. They have no past. They have no future. They are the ultimate in the moment human beings.
We had that amazing conversation on the show, and even in reference to your book and several other guests, being able to ask those 23 questions to someone who is only in the moment and finds joy, going back to the sunflowers around me, be the sun, not the salt, and actually Dr. Harry Cohen, and recognize and capture a moment of joy in the present. Tom Morris says, yeah, it's a fantastic book. Tom Morris says, nostalgia ain't what it used to be. Well, I just kind of had to add that in as well. Wonderful points. I hate to be a curmudgeon and move on and be the timekeeper, but I am going to. But Scott, you did not disappoint. You, as always, under-promised and over-delivered. And, it's actually quite apropos. That's why I've said to you guys, I don't know the topics, nor do I want to know them, because I want to be as surprised and hear it for the first time. But one of the things I've started to do with the show, the Friday show, is show you the highlights of the week that was on Corona TV. And on Monday, Bob Heyman, one of the real pioneers, he was there right at the beginning of the internet. It was funny how this whole week, with 3 out of the 4 guests talking about going back to the good old days, the beginnings of the internet, social media, where did it go wrong? Is there a silver lining? Bob's CoronaByte actually is certainly not one of the more optimistic points of view, and here it is. Have we lived up to what the web promised to bring to the table?
I guess I would say we've fallen short, but it just reveals something about human nature that is not something pleasant. Ted's vision was that computers made hypermedia possible, and that meant that all the world's information would be interlinked. What it's also meant, which he didn't foresee, certainly I didn't foresee, was all the world's misinformation would be interlinked. But I thought this was just a force for good. Certainly a business opportunity, but human nature being what it is, the neo-Nazis, the conspiracy theorists, the people who have spread disinformation for bad purposes to also be much more powerful. Uncovering those people under those rocks is probably a worse thing than empowering all of those good people.
It was quite a sobering bite. And when he actually said that the hyperlinking of misinformation was way worse than the hyperlinking of all the information, when he actually said that there's been more harm done than all the uplifting that took place, you know, the David slaying Goliath, the leveling of playing fields, the original promise. It obviously set the tone for the week, but as you'll see from subsequent CoronaBytes, we did end the week on hope, positivity, and optimism. And speaking of all three, you better be speaking about hope, positivity, and optimism. Mr. Marcus Whitney, you are up next. Take it away.
Yeah, thanks so much. And wow, what incredible points to segue from. You know, Scott, three quick things I want to say. One, there's no way for you to have known this, but I also celebrate Hanukkah. So I'm delighted that we are in that season right now. Two, I think that nostalgia is such an interesting thing, and that's why diversity in these conversations is so important. You know, for me, Jan, I look back at the past and I think about personal interactions. I think about my grandmother. I think about family. I think about, you know, people I went to school with. I think about lifelong friendships I've been able to keep. And those things are very meaningful to me. And I'm grateful that I've been able to maintain those because they keep me grounded, you know, in these days. But I would say there's very little about society of the past that I desire to, you know, look back on with fondness at all. And so I think that orients much of how I look at the world from a hope and an optimistic perspective. And then maybe the final point is, you know, I think it's always interesting to look at and think about the people who, you know, express regret about the web, especially if they were in on those early days. You know, for me, I think about all of the opportunities that, you know, combined with societal progress, just absolutely are new. These are net new opportunities for people that, you know, that were not there before. And, you know, who is to say, right? Who is to say whether more good or bad has happened, right? Certainly not I, but I also question anyone else who would make an assertion in either direction. And so I just sort of focus on the hope, positivity, and opportunity. And that's kind of what I want to talk about today. Obviously, this has been an incredible year of change for many people. Dreadful in many capacities. For me personally, you know, it was a year of reconnection. I mean, Joe, we hadn't really talked, you know, in many years. And, you know, we've had great conversations this year. Part of it because of this streaming platform, you know, this desire to create this media. And I spent probably much more time focused on creating media than I had maybe since I first got involved with blogs. I did my first podcast back in 2006, I think, for around the PHP programming language. And I really approached media this year with a level of seriousness that I hadn't in the past, and really watching it very, very closely while doing a podcast and a weekly newsletter, all leading up to the launch of my book. And I started to think about, how do you make money doing this thing? Like, what are the sustainable paths to doing this? And I know we've even had, you know, high level conversations about that, Joe. And really, it sort of distilled down to three things. One, advertising. You can see everyone knows about that model. Two, subscriptions, right? But then three, there's this other bucket, which is some strategic value. And marketers have been, you know, trumpeting at organizations and businesses, hey, you got to get in the content game, you know, for well over a decade at this point, right? Everyone's got to be in the content game. You got to produce value. You got to educate your market. You got to do something that is not totally selling. And that's one way to think about it. But I think in the context of this year, there's been an intersection of several trends that I wanted to bring up to this group for conversation. So the first is, you know, what did COVID-19 do to our economy? And at a high level, the things that I think it did were it introduced a low-touch economy that the internet was actually ready for. This would not have been true 10 years ago, but you know, today we were ready for it. Zoom was ready, Amazon was ready, you know, Uber Eats and DoorDash and all these things. We were ready with the internet. And so the shift in value happened very, very swiftly because we decided collectively we needed to continue on as a society. And we went to the thing that was ready for us, which was the internet. Second, in America, we had $2.6 trillion in stimulus. So that's net new money. And we haven't actually balanced the books yet on what that means. We haven't devalued the dollar in any official way. I was watching The Crown last night and they were talking about devaluing the pound. We haven't done that. So we just have $2.6 trillion of net new money floating around in our economy. And media was significantly disrupted as a result of it. And you think about all live events, you think about movie theaters, you think about Warner saying they're going to take all their new releases to HBO Max, you think about Substack, you know, all the journalists leaving the big brands and going to create their own newsletters, the explosion of podcasts and all the acquisitions that happened there. Media was significantly disrupted this year. Another thing that happened this year, and I think this was just a timing thing, it didn't have much to do with COVID-19, was, and not a lot of people were focused on this, but as an investor, something I pay attention to, capital reached a new level of platformizing. Whereas other things, you know, the opportunities have sort of run dry. We're dealing with antitrust with all the big tech companies because it's kind of hard to have an opportunity in marketing anymore. It's hard to have an opportunity in search or social networks. Those games are kind of over. E-commerce, those games are kind of over. But the capital game is a really interesting game. In January, we're going to have the regulation around crowdfunding boost the limit from 1 million to 5 million. So now you're no longer talking about small dollars. You're talking about what would be Series A rounds can now be raised through crowdfunding. Rolling funds on the AngelList platform hit this year. And so individuals with strong Twitter followings just started launching venture funds. Stripe rolled out banking as a service. So now if I'm a brand, especially a B2B brand, and I enable lots of things like, Shopify, I can just help my retailers have a bank account and have enable cards for their customers and things of that nature. And crypto really pushed us to all think, why don't we have more liquidity in private markets? And so the intersection of those two things had made me think that the next big opportunity could be, we've all been telling people, hey, you can live your passion by blogging about the thing that you're really passionate about, create a podcast, but we never really figured out like a good way to monetize that. And I think we're even seeing this with all these different streaming services, these over-the-top streaming services. They're all now fighting for the same dollar. There's not enough subscriptions to go around, right? We're not all going to be able to get in the subscription game. The ad revenue game, I think, is going to be depressed overall. But there is this third category about how do we make money and sustain our media efforts. And I just wanted to posit that I think this explosion of capital, this ability for very, very smart individuals in any particular area, you know, and we're not just talking about private equities anymore. We could be talking about baseball cards. We could be talking about whiskey. We could be, because there are markets for these things now, right? Okay. That these newly opened capital markets could be for the next 10 years where we see a ton of innovation and where media really actually makes money, not directly from subscriptions and not from advertising. So I want to stop there and see if anyone's got any thoughts about that. Joe, you're muted.
I made the same mistake. I want to thank my guests for taking 1 minute to set up their topic, so we have 4 minutes to discuss. Thank you, Scott and Marcus. I appreciate it. Grazie. Second thing I want to tell you is last night, speaking of other, I was smiling when you were talking. Last night, I hosted a company's holiday party using streaming. And I ran their whole holiday party. There were awards given out. There were prizes and raffles given out.
Yep.
And I did it all through CoronaTV. It's what I call Corona Corporate. I haven't shared it publicly at all. I'm sharing it now for the first time. Instead of going advertising or subscription, I went a different route, which is to recognize that companies right now can't get together in person. And what if we could deliver real engagement and professional entertainment through streaming? You're
qualified to do it. No question about that.
So I love the other. And by the way, the CoronaByte that I will show in just a moment I think feeds into everything that you just said. It's a perfect segue, by the way. It's a conversation with Ted Wright that we had about the QR code and the revenge and the return of the QR code. And we came up with, just in a very spontaneous conversation, a really great use case. But I'll let the CoronaByte speak for itself. But I think we have time for maybe one response or comment from Jan, Scott, or Chris.
Sorry, guys, about being long-winded on that.
Hey, listen.
It makes sense. It's the same tranche as we've had for a while, which is you when you monetize, advertising typically is the easiest with the lowest margin to you. Affiliates is the second tranche. Selling direct of anything is the third tranche, and the fourth is always multiplying investment, getting either you investing or other people investing, and that's where the multipliers are. When you have we have 2.2 trillion here. The EU just created 2.6 trillion. So yeah, you have a lot of excess capital floating around right now, and it's not going to go away anytime soon. It'll just go in Jeff Bezos' pocket, but it will not go.
Hopefully it spreads to more people than just Jeff. He's got a bunch.
Well, remember, will it be called Face? Will it be called Book? I mean, what will these big tech companies? They've grown to a point where, dare I say the phrase, they're built to suck. So it's going to be very interesting times. Very interesting times. All right. Well, let me go into that CoronaByte. This is a beautiful, beautiful segment from Mr. Ted Wright, and I will let it speak for itself.
I think the people who invented QR codes always thought it would be great and wonderful. And we were just living in a life where other things were a little bit more convenient. And now here's a great tool. And because of Corona and because of COVID and because of all the ways we have to deal with it in order to not get sick, QR code has come back.
The thing about the QR code, two things that strike me. One is timing, and the other one is a use case. No one could have anticipated that the smartest way to be able to pull up a menu was just to use a QR code. So timing, yes. 2020, and a use case, the ability to pull up information without necessarily needing to touch something in the process.
Yes, that's a great framework to push all, should I use this tool or not? Like, is the timing right? And more importantly, to your point, does it have a good use case?
So well set up, Mr. Marcus Whitney. And now number 76, Mr. Christopher S. Penn, take it away. And just remember, 9 minutes to set it up, 12 seconds to discuss.
You got it. So going back to Bob's thing in the beginning, I don't think it's necessarily bad that you've had all of these hate groups and things surfacing, because here's the thing, as a non-white person, there was always the racism. It was always there. You just didn't know it. Now, in the current environment, you know who your enemies are. You know who doesn't have your back. You know who supports things that directly oppose your very existence. That's not a bad thing. It's not optimistic, but knowing the truth means that you can react to the truth. So, on the topic of what's next, one of the biggest mistakes we see people making right now is trying to forecast. Right? That is a fool's errand in this current environment. I have seen many marketers in the past 6 weeks saying, okay, we're doing year-over-year comparisons. I'm like, I'm sorry, the world ended in March of 2020. The previous world that you are basing your data on is gone. It does not exist. That consumer does not exist. Those businesses do not exist. If you are trying to do year-over-year forecasting, you are insane, or you're stupid, one of the two, possibly both. What people need to be focusing on, it kind of goes back to the original theme of the show, is focusing on the here and now. You should be looking at real-time data. You should be looking at very short windows of data. Any forecasting you're doing is probably not going to go out much more than 4 weeks at a time. Be paying attention to how short these short windows of data, and be ready to pivot very, very quickly. In the last 3 days in the United States of America, we've had more deaths than 9/11, right? On a per-day basis. It's so funny because we've gotten, since the last 19 years, we've gotten people to take off their shoes every time they go to an airport because 2,900 people died on one day. We can't get people to wear a mask because when 2,900 people die every single day. Anyway, we can't predict what's going to happen. There's no way to understand even things like regional lockdowns. When are they going to happen? But you can look at the data, and there's more data than ever to help you pivot very quickly to say, like, if you have customers in this territory or state, and you see where that transmission rate is, and you know at a certain point, okay, they're going into lockdown. If your business is dependent on customers shopping in person, guess what? You're going to have struggles there. So the advice and I think the important thing to take away from what's happening this year is you must be looking at your data way more than you have been. If you look at a quarterly board report or a monthly report, you're kind of hosed. If you are looking at your key data on a day-to-day basis, you're doing it right.
So a quick follow-up with you. I mean, I thought what you said was beyond insightful. This idea of, people are not hiding anymore. They've come out from under the rocks and they've exposed themselves. Just a funny thing is I hit my limit of 5,000 friends on Facebook.
On a day-to-day basis, you're doing it right.
What? Who said that? Was that God or was that Chris?
My bad.
That was a bug.
And what was interesting, as I was saying, is I hit my 5,000 friends on Facebook. And what happened was, the beautiful thing about it is whenever anyone unfriended me, I knew it. So I would go back and see 4,998, 4,999. And clearly every time I spoke from a political standpoint or expressed my point of view, I would see a drop. The last couple of weeks, I've been very, very quiet in terms of expressing any point of view, just like Scott Monty, for example. And I've just seen the 5,000 friends stay the same. And I've actually been a little disappointed because that natural change has not happened. In a way, I feel like I've almost become too safe or non-committal. And I'm longing, to see that number dip again so that I can actually see who wants to reveal themselves as opposed to continue to lurk. So it's just been an interesting, insight or reflection on my part.
Here's the challenge with that, though. And the challenge is that the weeding out process, unfortunately, also creates bubbles, right? And so we no longer have any tolerance for anything outside of our bubble. And this is true across the spectrum and within every single group. People who are Jewish have a very specific perspective. People who are Orthodox Jews have a very sub perspective. People who are Shia have a certain perspective. And the algorithms that we're working with are creating worse and worse bubbles where when Marcus was talking about the buffet of media, the challenge we have is you no longer have to see, hear, or think anything you don't agree with, because all you got to do is change the channel. And there's a million new podcasts that support your view, even if your view is completely and totally factually wrong. So that's something that we don't have any mechanism for regulating, and breaking up Facebook will not change that.
You know what? This goes back to a discussion that Jan, you and I had, I think, on our first CoronaTV appearance together, where I talked about, again, we're going to look at nostalgia a little bit here, the good old days when we had 3 networks to choose from, and everybody watched the Johnny Carson show, the Tonight Show, or nearly everybody, at 11:30 at night. And now there's so much, there's so many channels to choose from. There's so many different things that people hear. There's very little, or there are fewer opportunities to unite us around kind of that singularity of message, that singularity of experience, which again is a good thing and a bad thing. It's nice to have a diversity of experiences and a diversity of thought and conversation. But at the same time, when we can't get our heads around a simple fact that everyone should cleave to, we're in for a dangerous time.
We are responsible for that too.
Well,
we're responsible for that. We've been telling people in businesses, hey, you need to find your niche. You need to find your tribe. You need to find just the people who are your rabid fans, your 1,000 true fans. We've been telling people this for 4 decades. And now we're all suddenly really surprised, like, oh, people did what we said, and now they hate each other.
Cause meet effect.
Well, yeah, maybe it's evolutionary. We're in it, and we're still in it. So maybe it will prove to be something that does have benefit, but we're just putting it together piece by piece. It's hard. We're hurting people along the way. we're hurting ourselves. If we can survive it, maybe it will become something better. But there's no guarantee of that. There's no guarantee of a species existing forever. In fact, it's probably scientific that it won't.
Or civilization, or dynasty, or corporation, or quite frankly, brand. I mean, death, taxes, change, and the inevitability of a defined life cycle. And, you know, that quote from Jeff Bezos, which is on the inside of Built to Suck, is him at his all hands meeting saying, one day we will go out of business. One day we will go bankrupt, and your job is to delay that for as long as possible. And I think the ability to understand, recognize, embrace our mortality, and therefore live every day as if it was our only day, as if it was our last day. And truly, that is what it is to be truly alive. And that's probably a good segue to Wednesday's guest, David Rindell, who was introduced to me through Tom Morris. I have to say that I've asked, as you guys know, I turned 50 on December 24th, and I've asked for, here's what I want for my birthday from my family. I want them to sit down, and we're going to put it on Apple TV, and we're going to watch this interview. This was all about Freak Factor book he wrote. It was truly one of the most meaningful conversations I've ever had the privilege of being able to be a part of, and this is the CoronaByte.
So that's one of the lies we've all been told. If you want it bad enough and you try hard enough, you can be whatever you want to be. And it's simply not true.
So complete that sentence for me. If that is not true, then what is true?
What's true is that success happens when you find the right fit between who you are and where you are, between the person and the place. When you find that alignment where, to your point from earlier, it's not that the weakness becomes a strength or that you turn the weakness into a strength. In the right situation, the weakness is the strength. When I'm in school and I want to move and I want to talk and I want to be in charge, all of those characteristics look like weaknesses because I'm in the wrong place. I'm in a place that wants sitting still, being quiet, doing what you're told. When I run my own business as a keynote speaker and I want to stand up and I want to talk and I want to be in charge, that's the job.
Success is the difference or the fit between who you are and where you are. Words that literally connected with me in the most deepest, profound way. Jan, you get to bring us home, my friend.
Well, you know, the end of CBS Sunday Morning takes takes you to a certain place. You know, it's like the end of a yoga class, and you relax and just watch a scene that has been sent in from who knows where, and you wonder, how does someone think of that for a news show? You know, when they first did it, like, what's the point of that? And the daring of doing that is what we all struggle to produce in a world that, you know, Randall was just saying, you know, demands that you succeed and not fail. And so you don't try. So I want to ask you all to do a little visualization, because the words I'm going to ask you to think about need to have your eyes shut, I believe, because there's too much information coming in through your eyes, the dominant sense. And hearing is okay. We're relatively quiet now. So I'm going to ask you, each of you, to think about this. And at a point, I'm going to ask you to close your eyes, or you can do it now. I'd like you to, in 3 or so words, starting with the 2 words "to be," to finish that thought. To be, and then a couple more words, okay? We're going to come back to this. First, I want you to go on a journey with me from big to small, small to big. My question to you is, what is the role of a society, a community's role, a tribe's role, a family's role? See that with your eyes closed. A single human's role. One person's day today, appointed, unmonitored, unpaid role in unifying, and here we go on our trip again, in unifying a block, a city, a state, a nation, a continent, a hemisphere, a world, a galaxy, a universe, a multiverse. What is your personal role in the union making of these United States? Starting with the words to be, what is your role?
This is what popped into my head straight away. To be whole, to be full, to be complete.
Chris, Monty?
Did you see how I embraced the silence there, by the way?
Nothing wrong with silence.
Not at all.
Well, I'll tell you what Steve Garfield said. He said, to be or not to be, there is no try.
Do or do not. I think it's to be lifelong learners and to bring other people on the journey with us.
Just to do stuff, not to be, because being is a passive state. You just do.
To be a do
requires. Well, whatever the situation is that it requires, kind of what you were talking about in that previous CoronaByte. Weakness and strength are all points of view and relative perspectives, right? You can appear to be in a weak position, and then somebody's got a hold of you, and without looking, you just pull a knife out and you stab them in the gut, and they're gone, right? And they thought you were weak, and you took advantage of it. So, to do is what I feel my purpose is to be able to do whatever the situation requires to protect the people that I care about, to help create the kind of environment where I want my kids to grow up, and to try not to leave the world a worse place than I found it, fundamentally.
I have to say, by the way, and Marcus, you can join in and do you want to contribute as well, or you don't have to?
Yeah. I'm happy with it. I mean, I think for me, and I think there's so much more behind the words that we select here. So it could go for much longer than a couple of words. But I think for me, it's probably to be okay with not being in control. That's probably the most important thing for me. I've got plenty of the go do already in there, so I don't need to sort of emphasize or focus on that. I think for me, the ability to focus on that which I don't control and being totally cool with that is pretty key.
Jan, as always, you are the perfect closer. That and the final CoronaByte, Joe Sinkwitz from yesterday, talking about, again, the origins of search, from the black hat versus white hat days and evolution, and also talking about influencer marketing. This was our CoronaByte, and I thought for anyone out there doing what Marcus said, it's amazing how your topics really synced up with so much that was said on the show this week. I think he offered two pieces of incredible advice for those that are trying to establish themselves, create a presence, whether it's streaming, whether it's using Instagram to become an influencer. Here's what he had to say.
I highly recommend hyper focus. If you want to become a really powerful influencer in cosmetics, only focus on cosmetics. And beyond that, go even more niche. Maybe you want to be known as the girl with great eyebrows, or the girl that knows how to get great eyebrows after week 3 of whatever process. If you do that, you can jump the line to becoming an expert and then parlay that into other cosmetic lines.
The more hyper and the more micro you go, the smaller the audience, we might despise the enemy, but secretly and deep down, we all want to become the enemy.
But that's why you also need to focus on collaboration while you go. So then you start doing work with other influencers that you know an expert in their own right within similar niches. You're able to trade audience. So there's lots of ways that it kind of has happy accidents where they just sort of meet together.
I'm not sure. Did you guys hear a little echo there?
Yeah, like about halfway through it started echoing.
I wonder why that happened. I'll figure out. But I love the essence of it was the hyper focus and then collaboration leading up to trading audiences and happy accidents. And I just thought it was very, very insightful. Well, guys, my goal is to try and do the show in roughly about an hour. It's amazing how when we had 9 people, it probably ended up being the same amount of time. This conversation, and we're not done yet, this conversation was quality, it was quantity, and as I said, it's not done yet. Scott Monty has a screen share for us. So let's there we go. To do is to be, Nietzsche. To be is to do, Kant, and doobie-doobie-doo. Strangers in the night, exchanging glances. This is when we basically hit rock bottom and degraded. Thank you, Mr. Scott Monty, for adding that as well. What can I tell you guys? This is just a small microcosm of a year that I will never forget, and a year that has been, I think Marcus said it best, reconnecting with old friends, new friends. It's just been an absolute pleasure. I could say that I could say it for each person that is on the show today. It has been the privilege of my life, and as I get to 50, I almost don't give a continental crap about turning 50 because I'm just full steam ahead. I'm doing a show. I can tell you guys that Seth Godin will be on the show and Professor Philip Kotler, and I'm working on a few more people. I'm just going full steam ahead. I'm just loving this. If you guys want to see these CoronaBytes, you can just tune into a Friday show, or otherwise go to Jaffy Juice TV on Instagram. It's a separate account. I'm not even promoting it overly, but that's where I'll post all of the CoronaBytes. But guys, you get to have the last word. I'm going to ask you one Corona question, and then afterwards, hopefully all of you and people watching will join us for 20, 25 minutes on Zoom with some of our regulars. So the Corona question this week is, what has been the most fundamental change in business in your lifetime? We've certainly discussed many things today, but I want to make sure that you guys have the final say and the final word. And you know what? You're on the top left on my screen. So Jan, why don't you go first?
I would say the disloyalty in corporations.
All right. Thank you, Jan. And Jan will be with us in the after show. Thank you so much for joining us today. Let's go next to Mr. Christopher S. Penn.
The smartphone, simply because the internet made connectivity possible, but the smartphone makes the entire world digital.
All right. Well, thank you, Chris, and we will see you later as well. Next, Mr. Scott Monty.
Well, I'll kind of dovetail with Mr. Penn there. I'll say social media and digital communications. It's not only responsible for what got me a huge corporate job, but it's what's connected the world so easily, for better and for worse. And it's just the product of where we are today.
All right. Thank you, Scott, as always, for being entertaining, surprising, delighting, bow tying. You did it all today. And finally, my fellow brother, my fellow Yid.
Come on, you Spurs.
Huh?
Come on, you Spurs.
Get in. Let's go. What has been the most fundamental change, would you say, in business in your lifetime?
I I have to sort of ride the rails of the previous gentleman and maybe just say cryptography, SSL, that has enabled us to do discrete, highly secure transactional business. I think that's one of many things that has made the internet massively disruptive.
Thank you, Marcus, and we'll see you in the Zoom after show. And that is almost a wrap. I hope you enjoyed it today as much as I did. These Fridays have just become absolute highlights of my week. Look out for the Corona question to be posted on LinkedIn, on Instagram, on Facebook, where you'll have a chance to weigh in as well and tell us and join the conversation. So with that little punny, cliched ending, guys, all of you, just remember, it doesn't matter what I think of you. What matters at the end of the day is what Chuck Norris thinks of you.
You are Chuck Norris approved.
There you go. I'll see you guys later.
Thank you for watching Corona TV with your host, multiple author, and global keynote speaker, Joseph Jaffe. Corona TV is the show about hope, positivity, optimism, and if there's time left over, a little bit of marketing. The after show on Zoom starts right now at bit.ly/Corona TV After Show. If you like the show, tell a friend or two. Please subscribe to the show at coronatv.show. And if you want to get inside news, previews of upcoming guests, and much more, text Corona TV to 66866 or visit josephjaffe.com/subscribe to sign up for the show's newsletter.
And despite the best ministrations of your wife, you still look ugly.